Let's look for API gateway. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create an API gateway. So let's give a new name. So I'm going to call it as Typeform for my iLab 2. Description, you can give it, say, iLab 2 API gateway. Leave the endpoint type as regional for now, and let's create the API. Once an API gateway is created, it actually asks for two different parts. One is the resources and one is the methods. What we need to do is first we need to create a resource. Resource is basically nothing but a URL string which then will be used to deploy the API gateway. So let's start with actions and create resource. Let's say resource name as Typeform iLab2 just for consistency. So if you see the resource path, it actually shows you /Typeform iLab2. We're going to say create resource. Now within this resource, what I want to do is I need to create methods. At the moment, I'm not 100% sure what I'm doing in terms of whether I want a get method or post method. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to actions, I'm going to do a create method. But within this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create any for now, and then we'll see how it looks like. So I'm creating an any method. Now, within this method, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to invoke a Lambda function. So I have a Lambda function. I'm using Lambda proxy integration. And then because what I want is I want an proxy integration because I want my Lambda to get kicked off. What I'm doing is Lambda region, Lambda function. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use DP. This will be basically any of the earlier Lambda functions that we have created. So you can just give a Lambda function name to save. So we're about to give permissions to Lambda function. We do OK. So this is our key setup. Now we have a method request, we have an integration request with Lambda where Lambda gets kicked off. From Lambda we have an integration response. This looks like a little quite weird because the response is not actually invoked, and then you have a method response. Nonetheless, but let's do this, right? Also, what we need to do is let's go and double check if our Lambda functions works fine. So let's click here. Just let's see how our Lambda function looks like. Within the Lambda console, we'll just test it once to make sure that everything is correct. So that's our Lambda function. Let's just test it. Hope everything looks good. Yes, it's successful. The events look good. We have a description. Perfect. What we're going to do is we're going to just go back into configuration test events. We'll copy our sample JSON object, go back to API gateway. Now we're going to test this. So we've already set up. It was quite easy to set it up, but we need to test if it's correct or not. So now what we're going to do is now we know that we want to post a method, right? Because our events are going to come from the webhook into the listener. So we want to post. What we want to do is we know the request body. So we are actually going to save our JSON object here, and we're going to try and test. Ooh, so we know that we have an internal server error and our status of the response is 502. Now, this is a little bit of a problem, and what it is trying to say is execution failed due to configuration malform Lambda proxy response. So after doing a little bit of investigation, what I realized is what Lambda proxy server needs is that it needs the status calls. So if I show you my if you look at any of these instructions, what Malcolm Lambda proxy indicator means is that you need a status code, you need headers, and you need the body as a response from your Lambda function back into the API gateway. Now, in our earlier blog post, we've seen that we are not going to send any of these things back to API gateway. What we want to send back to the API gateway is that our Lambda function ran fine, because we want to send the cleaner JSON objects which are then generated from Lambda functions into Snowplow Mini, and not the other way around. So that's why instead of making a code very big and then trying to write the entire response into the Lambda function, there was one thing that I realized that they've mentioned here clearly, that maybe we shouldn't have Lambda function for proxy integration ticked. So let's go back to what we were working on, and let's go back to our method execution. Let's look at method request. Maybe not. So when you go back into integration request, what we need to do is we need to not use the Lambda proxy integration. So I'm going to uncheck that. Yes, we know about this. We're going to give permissions. Great. So all of this now looks good. We don't have a checkpoint. We go back to our method execution, and now we're going to retest it. We're going to retest it with post. We're going to load again our sample JSON object, and let's test it now. And now if you see, we get a status of 200 success. So this is what I wanted to show you, what is the difference between Lambda proxy integration and not using the Lambda proxy integration. But as you can see, it's this was something quite new to me as well, but it's quite very easy to actually set up an API gateway to connect your webhooks with the Lambda function. So thank you so much, guys.